is here, and today I'm going to be talking about, once again, my favorite franchise of all time, Metal Gear Solid. And with me, I have all the mainline games, excluding Peace Walker, because I don't know Peace Walker physically, only own it physically. But yeah, I have the first game, I have the second game, I have third game, which comes with the first two Metal Gear games. Because this is the first Metal Gear Solid game, but there's two games before this, just simply called Metal Gear 1 and 2. It's confusing, I know. But this comes with it, since the original MSX versions cost a fortune. But we also own the first game on NES, which is a downgrade or a port that's considered non-canon because it does change up multiple things of the story. From there, I have 4, of course, Rising Vengeance, and Phantom Pain. And if you want to get technical, since I included the first two games on 3, I do own Peace Walker physically on the PS4 Metal Gear Legacy Collection. Because I bought that even though I already own all those games, because I love Metal Gear. That's how much I love the franchise. I've bought most of these games multiple times. I bought this on PS3 and I own it on my Xbox One. I've bought multiple copies of this game, though I sold one of them because it was in crappy condition and a player choice version. It was the version I played off though. I own 2 versions of this game. I own 2 versions of these games, and I used to own 3. You get my point. I love the series. I wasted a lot of money and I don't regret it, because these games are awesome. But the reason I have them here is just because it helps keep my mind on track with what game I'm talking about. And I'm just going to be talking about a general series retrospective. What I like and what I don't like. Because out of the 9 canonical games, I have beaten 5 of them. And I've played all but 1. That being Metal Gear 2. I haven't beat 5 Rising Vengeance. And I haven't beat the original, though I've gotten mostly through the game. So I have a decent understanding of the series. And I'd just like to talk about what I love about this series, and that's the story. The story is a natural evolution. If you play the games chronologically, or if you play them release-wise, then you're going to get the same experience story-wise. That's one of the best parts about the Metal Gear series, is that maybe, like, themes and messages-wise, it stays consistent. Of course, heavy spoilers for the series, so if you haven't played majority of the games, then go ahead and do that now. But if you start with MGS3, it explores the themes and topics of how in the war, you don't really have any true enemies. No matter what side of the war you're on, there is no truly right side, because both sides have friends and foes on the other side. And it deals with the topic of loyalty, too, with the boss and Naked Snake. With it ultimately coming down to the boss being so loyal to her country that she'd give her life and be claimed as a traitor. She would be hated in American history, and she was so loyal that she did that. Which then leads to Peace Walker, which then explores these reasons. Why did she do that? It couldn't have just been for loyalty, and we find out why. Because she wanted to reunite the philosophers and use the Soviets' money for it. And when she dropped her weapon, she dropped her entire life, because that's all she knew. Her weapon was her life. And it's very deep. I know it's at this point that word's kind of seemed overused, but it is, and I'm not doing it justice, of course. And I won't speak of 5 story, because we don't speak of 5 stories. It's god awful, and we should just skip it. It's only good. The gameplay wise, it's amazing, but if it's an insult if you love this story like me. I love and hate 5 at the same time. I have a lot of problems with it, but I won't touch on here because I'm trying to stay on topic. But if you continue, Metal Gear 1 and 2 have probably the least amount of messages in the game. I won't speak on them too much just because it's, but Metal Gear Solid 1 also has some very light messages, but they're still very present. And explores the topics of love on the battlefield and how in war there are no victors, and war heroes aren't really heroes, mainly like Solid Snake, who throughout the game is called a war hero, but throughout the game he also says he doesn't like that. He doesn't like being called a hero. He's killed countless people. He shouldn't be called one. He thinks he doesn't deserve to be called a hero. We see that throughout, of course, but for the series as a whole, Solid Snake's main games are fairly light when it comes to the messages and themes, but they make up for it because they're very, like, I say light as in it's not that they're not present, it's that they don't cover as deeply as maybe the big boss games. They're still just as there, but they're not as deep as topics. But in Solid Snake's games, we explore how he doesn't think he should deserve a good life. He doesn't think he deserves the happy ending. And instead, he's already ruined himself in his eyes, so he just tries to do better. It's hard to explain. And I don't feel like going into the entire lore and perspective, because I'd be here for an hour going over each small detail, but you get a general concept. But there's also the side messages, such as in the later games, such as Peace Walker 5 and Rising Vengeance, the heavy themes of deterrence, and how simply having, like we see with Metal Gear, since throughout the series, like in these games, we're starting to see Metal Gears not in the hands of terrorists who want to, use them. We see them in just everyday lives, like with Metal Gear Zeke, with Metal Gear Peace Walker, which was originally designed for peace, but they're designed as deterrence weapons. You're not actually supposed to use them, but the mere fact that you could use them is supposed to keep other people from using them on you. And they're explored heavily in how it works in theory, but there's just some very crazy people who do it anyways. And it does a great job of showing both sides. Another heavy topic shown throughout the entire series, through Metal Gear 1 through Metal Gear Solid 5, and that's that there's no good or bad guys in war, or in just general. There is no such thing as right and wrong. It's all a gray mess. Some people are worse than others, but there are no true good or bad guys, and it does a great job explaining that with characters like Big Boss, or Naked Snake. In some games, he's the hero, in other games, he's the villain. And at first, it seems black and white, but as you explore these games, it shows no. Though he was deemed the bad guy, in reality, he was trying to do right, and though he did a lot of bad things through the way, and though Snake did have to kill him, or he only killed him once, technically speaking, and that wasn't really a big boss, but we won't speak about it. But though Snake killed him, he was still trying to do right. And now I'm going to talk about what I don't like about the franchise, which is the actual games. It's not that I don't like the games, I should clarify. I love all the games, gameplay-wise, but the world building, I should say, that's more accurate, because it's all over the place. If you're playing release order, then you're not going to notice anything. It's going to be a natural progression through game through game. You start off with things that can barely move, and you end up with stuff like Metal Gear Zeke, and that are gigantic things. Or Peace Walker, that's a giant freaking nuclear dog. But then if you play them chronologically, like I've been doing recently, it's a mess. It is. because you have stuff like Metal Gear Solid 3. That makes sense. It's a logical progression. It starts off with just the blueprint, the basic idea of Metal Gear. We don't actually see a full-on Metal Gear. We just see this square shroud real hot black. We see what it's supposed to be a very, very early prototype of it. Something that can still launch a nuke from anywhere in the world. But it also needs like a runway to do so. It doesn't have legs. It's a motor-based vehicle. It's an early design of what could be a Metal Gear. Then you go to Peace Walker. And in Peace Walker, you have stuff like Metal Gear Z, which are giant behemoths that were made in some random island. Or Peace Walker, that's a nuclear giant dog. And then 5 has the same thing, these giant machines that shouldn't exist. Mind you, Peace Walker takes place in 74, and 5 takes place in 83. Yeah, 84 takes place in 84. And you have freaking holographic technology in 84 Metal Gear Solid 5. It doesn't make sense world building wise. And then you go back to Metal Gear 1 and 2, where the fact that a machine has legs is a big deal. And we see in Metal Gear 1, Solid 1, where something that's smaller than Metal Gear Z and less impressive technology-wise is hyped up to be this massive behemoth. And then in Metal Gear Solid 2, when you're giant fighting 20 different Metal Gear rays, it's supposed to be this giant deal. And that my mind was blown. When I saw 15, like an entire wave of Metal Gear rays, I was like, holy frick, I'm gonna die. How is this possible? And then when Raiden and Snake beat them, I'm like, I'm a god. Me and Solid freaking Snake just took down an army. Like, it was this big deal. But playing back at those moments, they don't seem as big of a deal when they should be. They still should be that massive deal. But they're not, because these, you have frickin' 74 with something more impressive than Metal Gear Rex, built in some backyard when Metal Gear Rex was built by terrorists with thousands of dollars to spare, an entire army bigger than what Big Boss had, you know? I guess it would argue if they're big or not, but more impressive facilities and technology as a whole. So when you're playing these games chronologically, it's like back and forth. You go from barely having Metal Gears to have the most advanced Metal Gears in the franchise to back to barely having Metal Gears. You know, and then once you get past the big boss stage, it's very smooth, but it's those big boss games that are really janky. Once you get to Solid Snake, it's a very smooth progression. Barely having legs, barely having better legs. This giant thing that is clunky and has its issues is still the biggest bad. You have 20 biggest bads that are slightly weaker than that biggest bad, and they're more of jokes, but and then to having Metal Gear Geckos and, you know, Metal Gear Solid 4, you have damaged Metal Gear. You know, you get what I'm trying to say. Or I hope you do that. You're a bunch of online people, I don't know. But my point stands that it doesn't feel natural. I can't recommend someone play these chronological order. It's not the best way to play them, which is a bad thing. Playing a game franchise chronologically should be the best way to enjoy a game, but it's not. Because if you play in chronological order, when you see Metal Gear Rex for the first time, it isn't that big of a deal. You've seen bigger, you've seen better. I started off with Metal Gear Solid 1, and when I saw Metal Gear Rex for the first time, my entire body felt like it was going to blow up with excitement. That thing was awesome. It still is, of course. I still love that thing, but looking back on it, it's like, oh, yeah, that's cool. You see, I shouldn't have that reaction looking back on it. I should still have the same of, holy freaking fudge and moly, fuck, that's cool. That should be my reaction no matter what I've played. And I've spent more time, I've actually spent more time praising the game series, so I can't be seen as negative here. But but they're still excellent games, but it doesn't feel natural. It feels forced, and I get what he's trying to do. He doesn't want to constantly be Hideo Kojima. He didn't want to constantly be going back from advanced, not advanced, advanced, not advanced. I get that, but it ends up costing the story, and that very, very much so shows in the unfinished product that is this game. I bought the Day 1 edition because I love this series, and it does come with a very cool map, I have to say. Boy, oh boy. I'll speak about that game a later day. But my point is, the game's world building feels very back and forth at times, and it takes you out the story. If I have a friend who's wanting to get in the Metal Gear franchise, I'm gonna recommend he plays it release order, because he's gonna experience all the cool shit that happens that for the first time your mind is blown, like Metal Gear Rex and Metal Gear Rays, and seeing the first Metal Gear, seeing this like tank that with blades, like the first Metal Gear game, They should be able to experience Metal Gear Gecko being, what is that? What? It has biological legs? What? They should experience that surprise and shock factor with playing these games. Granted, Peace Walker came out before 4, but you get my point. As a whole, this is one of the best franchises of all time, and it has a lot of issues, especially in the later years. Most Metal Gear games after 3 kind of take it downhill, I'll be honest. Peace Walker was a masterpiece of storytelling and themes, but it does have a lot of issues. Rising's good. This game's awesome. It doesn't feel like a Metal Gear game, which is probably why they don't have Solid in the title. This is a Metal Gear game, not a Metal Gear Solid game. So it makes sense why it's just Metal Gear Rising Vengeance. And I like it's a spin-off. It's not supposed to be like it. That's what spin-offs are meant for. And then this is just a mess. It feels like a spin-off, but it isn't a spin-off. It's a mainline series. The story sucks. The gameplay is very good, but there's just too much that I don't like about it. And then of course these games are masterpieces, of course, I got the matching set of these games. It cost me $50. I already owned all 3 of these beforehand, and I don't regret anything. It was worth every penny. Every penny. Anyways, this is a very beat up cardboard thing. I didn't buy it for the cardboard, bought it for the actual case, but it's still very cool. Anyways, this is what we see here. This was a 20-minute rant video. But yeah, if you're for some reason made it this far, please subscribe. That'd be cool. Or you can't. You don't have to. Or like it if you did, but anyways, give me your money.